WDW Radio, your information station.
Hi, it's Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and I'm here at the D23 Expo in Anaheim, California. There is an excitement and electricity in the air for so much that is going on. In front of me, behind me, where we have Herbie the Lovebug. He is just one of the many props that has been brought here for the first time ever by the Walt Disney Archives for the treasures of the Walt Disney Archives exhibit. And we are going to go through for an exclusive look inside the archives with Dave Smith, Chief Archivist. Come with me.
Go.
For generations of Disney fans, their love of Disney began with TV and movies. And for the first time ever, Disney is putting on display much of what we have come to see and love in all those productions. And this morning, I am pleased to be joined by two members of the Walt Disney Archives, Rob and Chief Archivist Dave Smith, as we're about to get an exclusive sneak peek at the Walt Disney Archives exhibit here at the D23 Expo. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us, and this is very, very exciting.
Yeah, we're glad that we can finally get these things out for fans to see them, because we enjoy looking at them every day, and it's fun to let other people see them too.
Well, and what was it? I mean, this is the first time anything has been done like this before, where you're giving access to the fans to see some of these things which have been, again, in warehouses for literally decades. What was it about the opportunity at the D23 Expo that you said, hey, we want to bring some of these things out and share them with fans?
Well, you know, this is our first one, so we thought, let's do something very special, and I think the Disney fans really respond to the artifacts that help tell the story of the legacy. And what better way to start the exhibit off by showing some of Walt's personal effects, and I think Dave could probably talk about these a little bit more than I.
Yes, one of my first jobs when I came to the studio was to inventory Walt's offices, and I remember all this stuff. The one thing that's interesting in this case that we're really lucky to have is the actual telephone that Walt had on his desk. Because when we were taking apart the offices around 1972 and putting them in storage, I had a team working with me from the studio, packing up the materials, and I asked the foreman if we could have the telephone, and he said, no, that belongs to the phone company, and we've got to leave that here. Well, one of the workers heard that, and when the foreman went out of the room, he went over and yanked it out of the wall and handed it to me and said, what you don't know, what they don't know won't hurt them. So that's how we happen to have Walt's original telephone.
And the wonderful thing is that we get to see for the first time personal effects of Walt. You see his glasses, you see his pen, you see a check that's signed by him, as well as some scripts and some awards. So it gives a very personal connection to the man.
We actually picked an interesting check because I hadn't realized we had one like this, but it's made out to the Dearborn Inn in 1945, and I think that was his first trip to the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village. And I don't know if your listeners have been to Greenfield Village, but you walk around that area and you see Disneyland. I mean, there are a lot of elements that Walt actually learned about from visiting Greenfield Village, and as far as I know, this 1945 is his first visit there ever.
Amazing. Again, to see some of his notes and some of his markups and things from the Three Little Pigs is very exciting. But like we said, it all sort of began with Walt and grew obviously exponentially from there, because there are artifacts here from film and TV and so much more. Can you tell us a little about maybe a couple of highlights from the archives?
Well, I would think they're all highlights, but I understand we can't talk about everything, but willing to if you guys have the time. Certainly a iconic piece of Disney history is Davy Crockett's coonskin cap worn by Fess Parker. And we also have a collection of the title cells from the opening sequence. I mean, what's bigger than Davy Crockett? It started a phenomenon in the 50s, and literally everybody had the coonskin caps on. Did you have a coonskin cap, Dave?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't a kid then
Okay,
anymore.
well.
I was about 15 years old, I guess, and that was a little beneath me.
Okay.
But great to see that the one item that literally started a craze back at that time. It's wonderful to see how incredibly preserved it's been through so many decades.
It's remarkable. I mean, it hasn't been on display, so it really hasn't been exposed to any of the lights or the things that could cause fading over the years. But you know, that's our job, is to make sure the stuff is well preserved. So when we do show it, it looks as good as we can present it for its age.
And when you talk about a TV phenomenon, one of the things that caught my eye was over here in the corner were Mouseketeer outfits worn by Cubby, and I think every little boy's favorite, Annette Funicello.
Very popular. It's great to see these pieces in color because, you know, when you watch the show, it's in black and white. I believe there's an interesting story that Dave can tell you about Annette and possibly phoning you.
Well, she wanted her original sweater, and we sort of declined politely because we felt that was an important icon for us to keep in the archives. So unfortunately, Annette, we still have your sweater.
Well, let me ask you, does it ever happen in the reverse where or an actor or a cast member might say, hey, I took this from the set, legally or otherwise, and is this maybe something that you guys would like in the archives that I've had in my home?
Well, there's a show, a film called $1 Million Duck. It stars Dean Jones and Sandy Duncan, I believe. Dean Jones was visiting us, and he says, you know, I have one of the golden eggs, and I put it in my pocket. He says, maybe you guys should have it now. And we were like, well, sure.
This doesn't happen often.
No. You know, Disney's the first archive, founded, of course, by Dave Smith. Before any studio even thought of doing that. I mean, literally, when Dave was starting the Disney Archive, MGM was selling off their prop department and their assets and all that sort of thing. So it was interesting that nowadays all the studios have sort of modeled their archives after what Dave has started. I mean, I've literally heard some of the other studio archivists said, well, how'd you start your archives? And they said, I just copied what Dave Smith did. I'd like to point out, though, with the Annette and the Cubby, it's and with all the exhibits, is all the mannequins are all custom made to fit the exact sizes of the actor and actresses that wore them, and it's a great way to really see, you know, the relationship and how small Cubby was in relationship to Annette Funicello. So another costume we should definitely point out over here is the Captain EO costume.
Go ahead.
So here we have Captain EO's costume from the 3D film from the Disney parks, worn by Michael Jackson. This particular piece, costume, belongs to George Lucas, Lucasfilm Archives, who was very kind enough to lend it to us to celebrate Captain EO at this exhibit. And Dave told me a great story about this particular costume.
Well, they did some of the filming for Captain EO at the Disney Studio in Burbank. And I was surprised one afternoon when in my door walks Michael Jackson in this costume. He didn't even bother to change out of the costume when he finished filming. And as you have no doubt heard, he's a big Disney fan. And he just was wanting to hear stories about Walt Disney and his life and how he got started and all that sort of thing. And the funny thing that happened was that all the secretaries in the building realized suddenly that he was there, and they started congregating outside the door of the archives. And so poor Michael, I had to bring him into my office and let him sit in there for a while to keep the fans away from him.
I mean,
he would call me for years after that when he had a question about Disney. My last call from him came a couple of years ago. He was calling from Dubai, but he had another question. So he remembered his visit and was really appreciative of the archives. He did wind up buy Walt's desk from us, and we refused on that.
I'm sure